Welcome to the deep dive. We're plunging into our inner worlds today.
Yeah, specifically looking at a model for understanding that landscape internal family systems, or IFS.
Exactly. We're using excerpts from Richard Schwartz's book, Introduction to Internal Family Systems. He's the founder, so it's a key text if you follow this work.
And our aim today isn't just, the basic rundown. Many of you likely know the core terms self, exiles, managers, firefighters.
Right. We want to dig a bit deeper, pull out some of the maybe more surprising or counterintuitive ideas from the source material.
The things that can really shift how you see yourself, how you relate to your own experiences, and even others.
And the absolute core idea, the big reframe right at the start, is pretty profound, isn't it?
It really is.
What if deep down at your core, you're actually inherently good, wise, whole?
Possessing qualities like compassion, calm, courage, naturally.
And those difficult feelings or impulses we all wrestle with. What if they aren't really you?
Right. What if they're parts of you, doing their best, maybe stuck in roles that aren't helpful anymore, but originating from a protective place?
That concept of the self, this inherently good, wise core, that's the foundation of IFS.
It is. And it really pushes back against some very common, deeply ingrained cultural ideas, especially in the West, about what it means to be human. The sources contrast this view quite deliberately.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Like, think about the influence of original sin doctrine, from St. Augustine. This idea that we're born flawed, sinful, needing to control our base nature.
Or certain interpretations of neo-Darwinism that frame us as fundamentally selfish, just programmed to compete and survive.
And even some psychological models that suggest things like empathy or morality aren't built in.
Exactly, that they have to be sort of installed from the outside, maybe through reparenting or experts fixing what's lacking.
So those views can lead to a pretty harsh internal landscape, right?
Yeah.
Lots of self-criticism, judgment, trying to control or suppress parts of ourselves.
And looking outside for answers, for authority figures to tell us how to be okay.
But IFS, as the sources really emphasize, makes this radical claim that self, that core of goodness and wisdom, it's already in there.
It's not something you have to build or earn or import. It's inherent.
And the book points out this isn't totally new. Many spiritual traditions seem to recognize something similar.
Yes, across cultures. Terms like original blessing, the Quaker inner light, Buddhist concepts like Rigpa or Buddha nature, the Hindu Atman.
Or the God seed or beloved in Christian or Sufi mysticism.
It suggests this deep, universal human intuition about an inner core of peace and wisdom.
And the key IFS insight is that accessing this self isn't some monumental spiritual achievement. It's actually quite natural.
And it has qualities. It's inherently healing, it's creative, it can enhance performance. When people connect with it, they describe feeling lighter, clearer, more spacious. Not like they achieve something, but like they return to something.
Okay, so self is the core. But, daily life often feels more like chaos inside. Thoughts, feelings, urges, all pulling in different directions.
Which brings us to the concept of parts. The idea that the mind isn't unitary, it's naturally multiple. You're likely familiar with this.
Yeah, it resonates, that feeling of having different voices or sides of yourself.
And the sources describe these parts not just as abstract ideas, but almost like inner personalities. People often experience them with clear images or distinct feelings.
And here's maybe the most revolutionary part of IFS, the bit that really changes the game. No bad parts.
Absolutely fundamental. Not just a nice saying, but a core principle.
Because it shifts everything. You stop trying to get rid of unwanted feelings or thoughts.
And start trying to understand them. The sources are very clear. Parts might be forced into extreme or bad roles. They might carry painful burdens from the past.
But their intention, at its root, is usually protective or positive, even if the impact is negative now.
Exactly. Take Anya's pessimist voice in the book. It was constantly telling her things were hopeless.
Right. But when she finally got curious, asked it why.
It answered. It said it was trying to protect her. By discouraging her from taking risks, it hoped to prevent her from getting hurt or disappointed.
Wow. So the intention was safety, even though the method, constant pessimism, was painful and limiting.
That's the insight, that critical voice, that anxious feeling. It might be a misguided protector. Understanding that changes the whole inner dynamic from a battle to a potential relationship.
Okay, so we have these parts, none inherently bad,
Mhm.
and they tend to fall into patterns, right? Exiles, managers, firefighters.
Yes, the three main groups. And understanding how they interact and why they get locked into those roles, that's where the deeper insights emerge from the source material.
Let's start with exiles. We know they hold the pain, the vulnerability, often from childhood.
Young parts essentially carrying fear, shame, sadness from past hurts.
But the sources really highlight how culture, not just personal trauma, contributes to them being exiled, pushed away.
Oh, hugely. Family rules, peer pressure about emotions, boys don't cry or only be cheerful. Debbie Ford's quote in the text is so potent.
About being told, don't be angry, don't be selfish.
Don't be mean. So she learned to hide those parts of herself, to be loved, to be accepted. Those parts become exiles.
That pressure to hide vulnerability just to fit in, it's so common.
And the sources point specifically to cultural pressures on men that need to cut off from hurt, from sensitivity, to avoid being seen as weak, as a wuss. There's that reference to the Matthew Shepard case interview.
That quiet desperation idea.
And the competitive culture, the winner be a loser mentality. Richard Schwartz talks about his own childhood, feeling sensitive and trying so hard to exile that part, to take it like the other boys.
So exiles carry not just the original pain, but the shame of having that pain or vulnerability.
Often, yes. And the fear that if it comes out, they'll be rejected or overwhelmed. So the whole system becomes afraid of them, afraid of their intensity.
Which naturally leads to the protectors trying to keep them locked away. First up, managers.
The proactive ones. They're trying to run your life day to day in a way that prevents exiles from getting triggered.
Keeping things controlled, stable.
Right. And the insight here is the sheer effort this takes. Managers are often working constantly, and they can be exhausted.
And their strategies can look so different. Perfectionism, people-pleasing.
Worrying, controlling situations or other people, being critical of yourself or others to preempt potential threats. Even things like apathy or lethargy can be a manager strategy to avoid risk.
Like Anya's Shriver part, pushing her relentlessly.
Yes. And its fear wasn't just about performance. It feared that if she stopped, she'd become lazy, gain weight essentially, fail in a way that connected to a deeper, exiled feeling of worthlessness.
Or Magda's part that created a paralyzing fear of appearing unintelligent.
That manager kept her quiet, trying desperately to avoid humiliation, which likely tapped into an exile feeling fundamentally inadequate. These parts are working so hard.
Okay, so managers are on constant patrol, trying to keep the exiles contained. But sometimes the exiles get triggered anyway.
Or the pressure builds too high. That's when the firefighters show up.
The reactive protectors.
Exactly. They jump in when an exile's pain breaks through or threatens to. Their goal is immediate relief, put out the fire of emotion fast and intensely.
And this is where we often see the behaviors people judge most harshly.
Often, yes. Things the sources list like binge eating, drug or alcohol use, excessive anger, self-harm, sometimes even dissociation or sudden sleepiness, numbing out.
But the IFS perspective, using that babysitter analogy from the book, asks for compassion here too.
Right, the stressed teenager with the screaming infant.
Yeah.
The teenager feels overwhelmed, desperate, tries anything, food, rocking, maybe even yelling or, in the analogy's extreme, shutting the baby away just to stop the overwhelming distress.
So the firefighter isn't malicious. It's desperate.
Yeah.
Trying to stop overwhelming pain now without thinking about consequences.
Precisely. Immediate relief is the only goal, which is why you often get this internal conflict, this polarization.
To the managers and firefighters.
Yes, managers value control, order, looking good. They're often appalled or disgusted by the firefighter's impulsive, sometimes chaotic actions.
And the firefighter feels constrained or criticized by the manager's rigidity.
Exactly. Anya's striver versus her binge-eating part is a classic example used in the text. The striver pushes, restricts, fears letting go. The binge part rebels against that pressure, seeking comfort and release. Each sees the other as the problem.
Locked in a cycle. The striver cracks down, the binge part acts out against the crackdown.
And round it goes. But the insight is, even these seemingly destructive firefighters have a positive intent deep down, usually protecting an exile. And they can change.
Like Brett's firefighter part, the one focused on sexual conquest.
Yes. Once the exile was protecting, carrying deep feelings of worthlessness was reached and unburdened, that firefighter part could relax and transform its role entirely.
Okay, so the goal isn't to fight these parts, managers or firefighters. It's something else. How do you actually work with this system, according to the sources?
It all comes back to the self, accessing that core self and leading from there.
How do you do that? It starts with witnessing, right?
Yes. Turning towards your parts, but with a different attitude. Not judgment, not trying to fix them immediately, but with genuine curiosity, just wanting to understand them.
But what if you're totally blended with a part? Like if you are The anger or the worry, how do you get that space to witness?
That's the crucial step of asking parts to step back or separate a bit. Not banishing them, just asking for a little space.
Temporarily.
Yes. The examples in the book show this. Anya asks her pushing part to step back and instantly feels calmer, more caring towards her pessimist part. Magda had to ask several protectors, angry part, observer part, frightened part, to relax just slightly.
And when they agree, when they give you that space, what happens?
The self naturally emerges. That's the key. You don't create self, it's just there, uncovered. When the parts aren't blending with you, people describe feeling calmer, more present, lighter.
And from that self state, you can relate differently to the parts.
Exactly. With the qualities of self-compassion, curiosity, calm, confidence. Magda, from Self, could finally see her paralyzing part, not as some monster, but like a scared, cornered animal.
Which allows for compassion rather than fear or anger.
Naturally. And that's what allows the parts to feel safe enough to eventually share their stories and release their burdens. It's about connection, not correction.
This whole process leads towards what IFS calls self-leadership. What does that actually look like day to day?
Well, the sources list those inherent qualities of self that become more accessible. The C words: compassion, calmness, clarity, curiosity, confidence, courage, creativity, and connectedness.
These aren't things you build, they're things that emerge when self is leading.
That's the idea. They are inherent to your core. We talked about curiosity as that open, non-judgmental beginner's mind.
Yeah, how it disarms parts, makes them feel safe.
And curiosity leads right into compassion, seeing suffering, feeling empathy. But, crucially, the self's compassion also holds the knowing that the other being, whether it's an inner part or another person, also has a self capable of healing.
So it's not pity or trying to rescue them.
No, it's more about being present in a way that helps their self emerge. Like Martin Luther King Jr.'s point about seeing the good, even in an enemy, it allows you to act strongly against injustice, but from a grounded place, not reactive hatred.
Which connects to confidence and courage.
Right. The confidence isn't ego. The sources suggest it comes from feeling connected to something larger, like a wave knowing it's the ocean. That reduces fear.
It makes courage more available.
Yes, the courage to face challenges, to speak truth, to act authentically. There's even a mention of the forceful protective energy self can have, like in martial arts, but it's grounded, not aggressive.
And that feeling of connection, that's the last quality, connectedness.
Yeah, it grows naturally with self-leadership. Connection to other people, what Schwartz calls horizontal connectedness, and often a sense of connection to something bigger, like nature or spirit, vertical connectedness.
Being in self resonates with self in others.
That's the experience people report. It lowers defenses. Joan Borisenko's story in the text about the self-to-self connection with a dying man, describing it as feeling like home, masks dropping.
And Varela's quote about how being in touch with our open nature naturally attracts others and opens doors.
Because you're coming from acceptance, from presence.
And that presence transforms everyday life, like Holly's journal entries mentioned in the book.
Yeah, those are great examples. Biking, swimming with her son, simple things.
But the experience was different because she wasn't caught up in the usual inner yammering of worry or criticism.
Exactly. Her worried parts had stepped back, so her self was present. And that allowed other parts, like her joyful, playful parts that loved being with her son, to come forward too. She was just there, fully experiencing the moment.
Experiencing life from that calm, centered core.
A more integrated inner system led by the self.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive into these IFS insights from Schwartz's work, the really powerful takeaway seems to be this core belief. You have inherently a self that is good, wise, and whole.
And that the struggles, the inner noise, the difficult behaviors, they often stem from parts. Managers and firefighters trying very hard to protect younger, vulnerable parts, the exiles.
And the path forward isn't fighting those parts. It's accessing yourself and leading with curiosity and compassion.
Understanding their stories, their positive intentions, helping them release the burdens they carry. That's what leads to inner harmony and transformation.
It really offers a hopeful perspective that healing and wholeness aren't things you have to find out there, but an inner resource you can connect with.
It really does. It's about uncovering what's already within.
So as a final thought for you, our listener, to take away from this deep dive, think about one inner voice, or maybe a feeling, that you typically push away or judge as bad. What might happen if, just as an experiment, you tried approaching it with genuine curiosity? If you asked it gently, "What are you trying to do for me?" What might that curiosity open up?